everyone, welcome to another episode of Teen Book Babble. I'm Randy, the Teen Services Librarian at the Fountaindale Public Library, and our team is here to talk about some of our most recent reads. Up first is Kelsey.
Hey everybody, my name's Kelsey, and for this week's Book Babble, I'm talking about #Murder Trending by Gretchen McNeil. So this book takes place in a version of America in which execution has become a form of entertainment. So instead of spending their last days rotting in a jail cell, death row prisoners are now sent to the new and improved Alcatraz 2.0, where their every move is live streamed, including them being hunted down by sadistic killers with over-the-top personas. And the story follows Dee Guerrera, who's a 17-year-old girl who's accused and falsely convicted of killing her stepsister. So she wakes up on Alcatraz 2.0, sentenced to death, and facing down one of the hired celebrity killers. It is a very interesting read. It has definitely slasher vibes, but it's approached from a very comedic perspective. It has a lot of like kitschy over-the-topness, but it's very self-aware of that. So it's really, really funny. Some of the Paniacs, as they're called, which are these performance executioners, have very, very like big out there gimmicks. Like one of them is Gucci Hangman, and he strangles people with designer clothes. And there is Hannah Ball, it's a playoff of Hannibal, and she does cooking shows where she cooks her victims alive. But when Dee gets there, not only does she realize that she's innocent, but she thinks there might be something else going on behind the scenes. So it's funny, it's entertaining, and it has a really good mystery going on. I would definitely say people who are fans of like the 90s Scream movies, it's very, very fun like that. It has the same sort of silly, kitschy vibe. So if you're a fan of horror or slasher, I think you'll definitely find it entertaining and funny. Dee ends up forming a group of other prisoners that end up being labeled the Death Row Breakfast Club. So it's very, very funny for something that is so dark. I would say definitely a warning for if people who don't even want to think about gore and aren't up for graphic, if somewhat morbidly funny descriptions, you might want to pass on one. But if you're a big horror fan and you like your comedy a little bit more on the dark side, it's definitely very, very fun, and it has a compelling mystery to tie it all together. It is the first in a series. However, since the successive books actually follow different characters, it can be read as a standalone. But you do, if you're going to read the sequels, which the one that's out right now is #Murder Funding, you are going to want to read the original first, because it does pick up after the events of #Murder Trending. So you can get this one either hardcover here at the library, this beautiful copy I'm holding right now, or you can get it online on Hoopla for an ebook. So hopefully you will enjoy it.
I'm Jenna. I read The Downstairs Girl by Stacey Lee. This was a historical fiction book, and it's a standalone novel that came out in 2019. I would highly recommend this read. It's very adventurous for historical fiction, and it has a lot of great historical information that I don't think we get a lot of in our own history courses. So let me tell you what it's about a little bit. Jo Kwan is a 17-year-old Chinese-American orphan living in the basement of a printing shop, and it's set in the 1890s in Atlanta, Georgia. When Jo loses her job at a milliner's or a hat store for women, she's forced to return to work as a maid for an affluent family in Atlanta that treats her not so kindly. She's worked for this family before, but she was fired for some things I won't give away, and now she ends up having to go back to work for this family. So she lives with her guardian, old Jin, under the Bell's printing press. The Bells are a family who have had this newspaper for many years, and they run it out of their home. And Joe lives underneath the store with old Jin, the man who took her in after she was abandoned as a child in China. And the Bells don't actually know that they live there. They live in sort of a hollowed out area that was meant for concealing slaves at the time and hiding slaves um, from Southerners in Atlanta, Georgia in the 1800s. So that's where she resides, and they don't know she's there. But Jo has spent her entire life eavesdropping on this family, basically, and listening to all the whereabouts of the printing press and the tidbits about journalism. So when one day she hears the Bells talking about how they won't be able to keep the newspaper going if they don't get more subscribers, she comes up with a brilliant idea to become a columnist. And she disguises herself under the name of Miss Sweetie, and she starts to basically write an advice column. They were really popular at this time in Georgia, and word gets around and she gets really popular off of this column. So she disguises herself as an old Southern auntie rife with great advice, and she does not hold back. She puts all of her opinions out there, and when her column blows up, she uses her power to address some of society's ills, but she is not ready for the backlash that she faces when her column challenges fixed ideas about race and gender. So her printing opponents begin to wonder just who Miss Sweetie is and why she's talking a little bit differently than most Southern aunties at that time. And she gets pretty close to being found out, which is dangerous for her as a Chinese American girl because of the rampant racism that runs through this book as well. But Jo receives an odd letter at one point, which leads her on this journey to find out who she is and where she comes from. So she doesn't really spend too much time wasting once her opponents want to figure out who she is. I really like this book. I think it's a really important part of history that goes untaught in schools. Jo Kwon is basically ridiculed and just discriminated against this entire book, not only for her race but her gender as well. There's a big part of the women's suffragette movement that I think is left out of our public education system, which is that it was led predominantly by white women. In this book, Jo Kwon is not allowed to join the feminist movement in her town. She's actually shoved out by the other women, and that blatant racism is a really big part of women's suffrage. And it was really nice to see a book, a YA book no less, touch on those really important issues. So it does a great job demonstrating the way that white women were pushed to the forefront of women's suffrage for the greater good. And it's also very realistic. This book really puts you right in the heart of the 1890s in Atlanta, Georgia, all, pleasantries and unpleasantries included. And there's a lot of awesome phrases that Stacey Lee uses that just they fit really well. It doesn't sound like she's trying to push them into the story because they're old-timey phrases that she's supposed to use. They flow really well, and her writing is really easy to read. I also really like the pacing. I think that was my favorite part of this book. It moved quickly, but not too quickly, and everything kept pushing one after another. So I definitely recommend it, especially if you're not a fan of historical fiction. If it's not something you usually try, give this one a try. It's a really inspiring, beautiful read. And I think everybody should read it. No matter what walk of life you're from, it's going to help you learn something about somebody else. So this book is available in print here at Fountaindale. It's also available in e-audiobook on Cloud Library and Hoopla, and you can also get it on ebook on Overdrive.
So my most recent read is Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. This book was first released in 2017. It is a novel in verse, and it is a standalone novel. I decided to pick this up because one of our teen volunteers recommended it as part of our teen volunteering book recommendation project. So let me tell you a little bit about the book. So in Long Way Down, 15-year-old Will's brother Sean has just been gunned down and killed in the street. His grief and anger are overwhelming, and he is determined to follow the 3 rules handed down to him by his brother. Number 1, there's no crying. Number 2, no snitching. And number 3, revenge. If someone you love gets killed, find the person who killed them and kill them. With his brother's gun in hand, Will leaves his 8th floor apartment and gets on the elevator. Before he reaches the lobby, 6 ghosts, family, friends, and others from his neighborhood, all killed by violence, board the elevator to tell their stories, to help him reconsider his deadly choice. Even though this book is a quick read, its message is powerful. It's about choice and how our decisions impact others and ourselves. Will's grief is so raw, and he is caught up in this cycle of violence. He has lost his uncle, his father, his brother, and friends to violence. The question is, will he continue on the path to revenge or break that cycle? This is one of those books that really stays with you, much like The Book Thief. I've been thinking about this book for days and wondering what I would do in the same situation. So I'm really thankful that Aisha recommended this book. I wanted to share with you some of her thoughts because it was she had some really great things to say about Long Way Down. Aisha says this book is absorbing, intense, and intriguing. These are just some of the many words that describe the engrossing novel by Jason Reynolds. One thing that she really loves about the book was that it was fast. Even though it was a fast read, it was very powerful. The plot of the book was unique and refreshingly different. Not a single word was wasted for her. As cliche as it may sound, it made her think about how one's actions will always speak louder than their words. She feels like the whole world should read this thought-provoking book and learn how violence always creates violence. So if you're interested in reading Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds, the book, Fountaindale does own the book in print and on Playaway. It is also available in audiobook CD. You can place a hold and have it sent here to pick up and check out. If you are interested in reading this as an e-resource, Cloud Library has it as an e-book to check out. You can also check out an e-audiobook version on Access 360, Cloud Library, and Overdrive. If you are interested in earning some volunteer hours, I encourage you to take part in our Teen Volunteering Book Recommendation Project. We're looking for these recommendations from our teen readers to post on our blog, website, and social media. You can submit a book recommendation to earn service hours. Just visit fountaindale.org/teenvolunteer for all the details and to start recommending your favorite books. Want more recommendations? Visit our website at fountaindale.org/teenreads to view book lists curated just for you, including LGBTQ+ fiction and nonfiction, our Let's Talk About Race, Racism, and Racial Justice, fiction and nonfiction lists, and much more. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.